It's time for ROTD Weekend. Do you know what it feels like when you've got your own back? Like when something goes wrong and you realize that you actually already have the solution because of something you did a while before. That happened to me this week. So what had happened was we had this really busy weekend. My daughter had her school dance on Saturday and a bunch of her friends came over first, all dressed up like with their parents. So we had lots of people in the house. And then on Sunday, Marty and I had our improv class that we've been taking together. I love it so much. I think everybody should do improv. It is so much more fun and so much easier than I thought, but that is maybe a story for another day. But we had our class and then my kids were meeting us after the class to go watch an improv show. And then we were going out for dinner. And so we got back quite late on Sunday. And then I hate to admit this, but we hadn't fully cleaned up from all the people being over on Saturday. So on Monday, I had sort of a chaotic kitchen going on with stuff in the sink. My plan had been to kind of do some dishes while dinner was cooking and then finish it all up after dinner and the house would be back to normal, you know? But I go to get the chicken thighs out of the fridge. I open up the chicken thighs that I'm planning to cook and they do not smell good. They weren't past their best by date, but they did not smell right. And I didn't have any other meat that was out of the freezer or available. And, you know, I'm on like the verge of ordering pizza, but we'd been out the night before for dinner and I didn't really want to have takeout. And so I opened the freezer and in there is a package of frozen sausages. And I said to myself, okay, these thaw really quickly in the sink. I have the instructions for that on my website. I'll get them thawed and cooking. I'll figure something out. So I go back to the kitchen and the sink is full of stuff and I'm not thawing them in there. I don't like thawing them in the microwave. And I'm like, okay, wait, I know how to cook these straight from frozen. I have a recipe on my site for doing it in the air fryer and one for doing it on the stove. So I could do one of those. And I quickly thought through dinner and decided, well, you know, I told you about the sausages, peppers, and onions in the air fryer recently. So I was like, okay, I'm going to do peppers, onions, and potatoes in the air fryer. I can't thaw the sausages in the sink, so I will cook them straight from frozen on the stove. And I Googled for it, sausages from frozen cook the story. And there it was, the answer that I needed. And so we had the sausages that were cooked straight from frozen on the stove and those peppers, onions, and potatoes. And I made just a quick like tomato salad. Well, it was tomato and cucumber and red onion, but it was a really nice little salad to go with it. And I was saved. Dinner was so quick. Those sausages on the stove straight from frozen turned out really good. They browned well. They were cooked right through. They were still juicy. It was really, really great. And I just was like, yay me for having that solution already. And so I will say to you, I know that when I sent out that survey to you guys, a lot of people answered that they were looking for quick and easy meal solutions. And I am compiling these all the time and coming up with them. And I'm just going to tell you, like, shout out to the sausages from Frozen. Shout out to those shrimp from Frozen. I know I tell you about that all the time, but just having that like really easy, it's in the freezer, pull it out and go solution for dinner is going to save you and make life easier on those crazy days when the kitchen's a mess and when the thing you'd plan to make for dinner falls through. I hope it's not smelly chicken thighs in your case, but you know, it happens and having those solutions is super helpful. And in that direction, my guest today has a wonderful breakfast solution for you. Oh, I guess it could be any meal of the day. Really great snack, really great breakfast. And she is here to tell us that the food from the Midwest has gotten a bad reputation and it's actually fresh and delicious and wonderful. And she's telling us all about it. My guest is Meredith Kruse from ourlovelanguagesfood.com. I did not realize that my stereotypes about Midwestern cooking were what they were, but they were. And she set me straight, and she's going to set you straight too. Here is my conversation with Meredith. Hi, Meredith. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Christine. Thanks so much for having me.
I'm excited to talk with you. We just saw each other in person in Savannah. People listening know that I was at a food blogging conference and met amazing people. You were one of them, and I loved meeting you again and hearing from you. And what really struck me was the name of your blog. When I heard it from across the room, I was like, oh, I need to talk to this person. So tell us, what is the name of your site?
Yes, my site is called Our Love Language is Food. And this was developed with my husband because him and I cook together a ton in the kitchen. And back in the day, we were reading the Love Languages book, and it just really popped into my head when I decided to launch the blog because our love language is food. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And it just felt so natural and it just felt so authentic to us. So I was so glad that I could use that name and invite people into our kitchen.
Yeah, no, I love it. And it's so true. I mean, it's not true of everybody who cooks, but so many of us who cook are showing our love for others with food, are enjoying food together at a table with love. And I guess I'm wondering for you, it's part of your relationship, like your romantic adult relationship, but you also grew up with love and food all intertwined, right?
Yes, I come from, I would say, a medium-sized family. For some people, it's big, some people, it's small. But my family, especially my mom's side, she's one of 4 sisters. So I have all my aunties and my cousins and my grandma always cooking together and doing big meals for holidays together. And I didn't know eating out at restaurants was like a thing. I thought it was just like you do this once a year as a special occasion because we always cooked at home. So it's just part of who I am and where I come from. And I'm just happy that I can share that with others.
Yeah, no, that's great. And yeah, I have very similar memories. Big, lots of cousins and aunts in the kitchen and grandmothers. And you come together for a celebration of some kind, which is, showing your love for each other by showing up. And then what you do once you're together is cook and eat.
Yeah. And we often did more potluck style meals. So it's like everyone was assigned a dish or concept and they would come in, with the casserole or the bread or the huge dessert. And, we'd just all kind of create this big memorable meal together.
So you mentioned a word that I find very interesting. Casserole. So you are from the Midwest and you don't have a great rap for cuisine up there, but I know you take issue with this. So what is the stereotype, and do you know why? First start with the stereotype in case anybody doesn't have it. There are people who are like, no, it's already great. So where is that from?
Yeah. So I think the Midwest gets a really bad rap about just having really bland, fatty, just yucky food with a can of soup and everything. And it just kind of meh. But we're in the heart of farmland country where you have access to fresh vegetables and fruits. And we have some of the best trout streams in Wisconsin. So tons of fresh fish. I know it's not like sushi fish, right? But we have access to all the farms near us. So our food comes from nearby. It's fresh, it's beautiful, and you can do so many great things with it. I think another fun fact is recently they did a Food Network show based in Milwaukee because Milwaukee has some of the highest volume of James Beard nominated chefs in the nation.
Wow.
I don't think a lot of people know that. So Milwaukee and Wisconsin, the Midwest, there's some really cool food culture happening. Mm-hmm. And it's not all casseroles. It doesn't have a can of soup and everything. And that's part of what I like to show on my blog. Yes, I use cheese because I live in the dairy state and cheese is amazing, but that's not the only thing in my dish.
Right. No, that's so true. And I that resonates with me so much. So where I'm from, Winnipeg, I wouldn't call it the Midwest of Canada. I don't know what that would even mean, but it's right in the middle and does not have a great reputation for food culture. But when you go there and you actually start searching for great restaurants, you go to the festivals or to this place called The Forks, there is vibrant, wonderful food, amazing chefs, amazing markets, and just so many good things that people don't expect because that's the part that I don't know. I don't know why, but they don't expect it, and you and I are here to say it's there.
Yeah. And I think maybe it's kind of outdated feelings about where we're from. In the 1950s, maybe the people are making casseroles for their husband coming home. But you know what? That's not what we do anymore. Yes, I love a good casserole, but I'm going to make everything from scratch.
Mhm.
And it's going to taste fresh and be full of veggies because I love vegetables. Much to my husband's chagrin, I shove it into like everything. There's so much more to Midwest cooking and, even Canadian cooking. You guys are brethren over here that I think people don't necessarily know about. So maybe it's unfairly judged or it's an old notion that we're here to change.
Yeah, no, and I think you are changing it. So part of what you're saying is that you do have access to lots of fresh fruits and vegetables, amazing cheese, the trout streams. I'm sure there's also like cattle farms and all of that kind of
Yep.
thing as well.
Cattle, pig farms. We've got everything here or in the surrounding states too. So a lot of the grains that you get all over the US come from the Midwest.
Yeah.
So we're just right here. I have friends who are farmers. I have a friend who's a cattle farmer. So we get beef from them, right?
Right.
And maybe you're picking up in a store where you are, but here I can just go see my friend and say, hey, I need 6 pounds of ground beef because I'm going to freeze some and use some for a recipe.
Yeah.
And it's from less than 20 miles from me.
Oh, I love that. Now I need to go to Milwaukee for sure. And maybe, oh, you know what? Let's do this shout out because you were telling me about an amazing festival coming up in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Let's take a moment and tell people because if anybody's thinking about where they want to go in the fall, the Midwest, Wisconsin is where you need to go. Tell us why.
So the Wisconsin Dairy Council does an amazing job, but we have the Art of Cheese Festival coming up in Madison in September. And it's like a 5-day event. So you can look it up online, but there's like a bourbon and cheese pairing and you're touring the farm where the bourbon is made because the corn is grown right there. They also have like a chocolate coffee and cheese event. They have a golf event. They have all these curated brunches and dinners. And then at the Madison Farmers Market on Saturday, which is one of the biggest farmers market in the US, by the way, they have a whole street that is going to have the cheese festival on it.
Oh, that sounds so cool. I have not yet made my travel plans for September if I'm having any, but I'm writing that down right now on the other to-do list. We had a work to-do list we were talking about before we started recording. Now there's also a personal to-do list item on there as well. Okay. So I am super curious to find out what recipe you have brought to tell us about today. What are you telling us about?
Sure. So I am bringing you one of my favorite recipes on our site. It is a homemade egg bite. Oh. So these are egg bites baked in the oven using a muffin tin. So we're not using any specialty equipment. It's great for so many reasons, but I really love it for 2 reasons in particular. They are great as individual portions for brunches. So we made these for Easter. We've done them for Mother's Day when we have friends over. It's just easy. You just throw it in the oven, you bake it, and then you can have it with your rolls or muffins or whatever you want to pair it with. Mm-hmm. And they're also fantastic for meal prep. So they stay well in your fridge for the week. So if you make up we usually do a double batch on Sundays. My husband and I can eat them for breakfast all week. They freeze really nicely. So, if you have busy mornings or you're rushing out, it's a good grab and go. You can use these for so many reasons and so many ways, and they're just a nice hearty breakfast. So Midwest is hearty, right? Mm-hmm. But they're packed with spinach too, so don't worry.
So are these I don't mean like a copycat, but are they like similar to like the Starbucks egg bite kind of concept if people are trying to picture it?
Yeah, so that was another reason I wanted to talk about this recipe in particular. So I think a lot of people associate egg bites with Starbucks. So, people all over probably the world know what those are. But if you're trying to actually do a true copycat of the Starbucks egg bites, you need a lot of special equipment. Those are made with a sous vide method. Right. So you need equipment to do that. If you want to make them look exactly like that, you need a special mold. And then, if you're getting them in store, they're using kind of like a countertop convection oven or like an air fryer to make it. So you're suddenly getting all this specialty equipment to try to make that when you can make these in a muffin tin that you can get for probably $10 new, or go to the thrift store and get some bakeware and an oven, which most people have. So I feel like these are a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, no, that's great. And you said that they freeze well. I'm going to ask you to start telling us how to make them, but I want to make sure that you explain the best ways to freeze them also, because I am actually looking for exactly this kind of idea to actually make with my kids. I want them to make them and then have them in the freezer for their breakfast. So this is exactly perfect. So where do you start when you make these?
So this base recipe is really basic. However, another great thing about these is you can customize them to however you like. So on my blog post, I write some other combinations I like or different vegetables or meats you can put in here. But our base recipe uses large eggs, heavy cream, bacon that's already cooked. So you can either buy pre-cooked or save a couple slices if you're making it for breakfast on the weekend.
There's never leftover bacon from breakfast on the weekend.
I purposely stash it away before I serve it because otherwise I won't have it. Same issue.
I think my problem is I stash it away and then I know where the stash is. And then
Okay, we gotta just focus and label it as 4 egg bite.
Or stick it straight into the freezer, right? And then maybe it'll be far enough out of sight. Okay, so there's some bacon that came from somewhere.
We're using fresh spinach and shredded cheese and a little salt and pepper. So the base recipe is probably more accessible to folks, but you can add in, a little bit of heat if you want to do a couple dashes of hot sauce or, sprinkle a cayenne. I love throwing a little paprika in. You can throw Italian seasoning. There's a lot of ways you can customize it to your own taste.
Okay, that's great. So you just mix all that up together?
Yeah, for the most part. So you're going to preheat your oven, to 350. We're going to spray or grease 11 of your 12 muffin tins. So a standard muffin tin will have 12 or you'll have 2 sets of 6.
And can it be, so my first instinct would be to do this in a non-stick muffin tin because I'd be afraid of the egg sticking, or does the egg pop out even from a regular metal muffin tin?
Yeah, I've never had one of the silicone ones, so I always use a metal one. As long as you grease the bottom and sides well, they will come out. I usually use 2 forks to help me kind of twist them out.
Okay, wonderful. Good to know.
So yeah, you'll preheat your oven. You'll prep your muffin tins with, either cooking spray or you can use a little oil with a paper towel or even melted butter. No one's going to be sad if you add butter.
We're sad with butter, yeah.
And then in a large mixing bowl, you're going to crack your eggs in there and pour your cream and whisk it together. So you're breaking apart the yolks, you're combining your milk and your eggs, and that's what's going to help make it fluffy. Mm-hmm. The cream helps make it a little bit fluffier because of the fat content.
Okay. And adds probably a lot of richness too, right?
Yeah, they're really lovely. So you mix those together.
Could you do, if you wanted to, for any number of reasons, could you do a fat-free milk or 2% or whole milk? Would that be possible?
Yes. And I've written that out on the post because I don't usually have heavy cream in my fridge because I'm not always using it. So my husband always has half and half for coffee. Mm-hmm. Half and half works great. I have also used skim and 2%. Mm-hmm. Skim and 2% don't have as much fat content, so they don't get quite as fluffy, but they're still great. That's probably how I make them 90% of the time because that's what we have. Mm-hmm. Or I'll steal my husband's half and half and throw some of that in there.
Have you ever tried it with evaporated milk? I don't mean sweetened condensed milk. I mean evaporated milk, yeah.
I have not, but I think it would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think it would work too. I'm like you. I don't tend to have cream and I don't tend to have whole milk even. If I'm planning to do something and it goes on my grocery list, then I have it. But I'm going to make some egg bites right now. There's no way I have it. But I always have a few cans of the full fat, not the skim evaporated milk. And I've been finding lately that it works in tons of places, that cream works better even than whole milk sometimes. I think there's a higher protein or some emulsifying properties to it.
Yeah, I might have to try that after we talk because now I need to know. I would assume that would work well. I have not done that version, but I have done it with heavy cream, half and half, whole milk, 2% and skim. So I've tried all of those.
And then I know you do some allergen-free cooking. Have you ever tried this with an oat milk or something?
I have not for the eggs because I'm already putting bacon and cheese in it.
Yes.
So this would then be a completely recipe at the end of the day. So I think that would need to be something I would have to write out and do a full dairy-free or a full meatless, right?
Yeah, I haven't experimented very much with dairy-free milk, so I'm never sure what their properties are for something like this. What is interchangeable and what isn't.
Yeah, I tend to use more dairy-free milks in coffees and baking. Mm-hmm. So I love oat milk for baking. So if you can't use a dairy milk, I find oat milk tends to be a good replacement. But yeah, for savory and with eggs and with cheese,
I know.
That swap doesn't make sense to me, so I haven't tried it.
Yeah, it feels like it might be like a little sweet or something, right? The oat.
Yeah, you'd have to try to, counterbalance that a little bit.
Interesting. Okay, so you have got these. What have we done so far? Just the egg and the milk.
Just the egg and the milk.
I
so
told
far,
you
so
I
we
was going
whisk
to
them.
interrupt you.
It's okay. We whisk those together, and then you're really kind of throwing everything else in the bowl. I like to use a kitchen shears to even just like cut up my bacon and cut up my spinach into like smaller pieces. You can rough chop them on a chopping board, but with your whisked egg and milk, we're just throwing in your chopped spinach, bacon, about half to a third of your, or 2/3 of your cheese, and your salt and pepper. Because we're also going to put some cheese on top because it's just nice to have that nice melty cheese.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep. So we, then whisked all of that together just to, distribute our ingredients throughout the egg mixture. And then we're going to pour or scoop your egg mixture with all the things mixed into your muffin tins that are already greased. So you can use like a 1/3 cup measure. If you have a pouring spout on your bowl, you can literally pour and kind of help scoop. You're going to have to use maybe a spoon or your whisk to help get some of the spinach and bacon divided amongst, right? But yeah, you kind of fill your muffin tins 2/3 to 3/4 full. I usually end up with 11, but when I'm making it for my family, I'm sometimes measuring my vegetables with my heart. So then I end up with more. So I usually grease all 12 muffin tins just in case. I've done that for myself. But if you're using the measurements I've given you, they fit 11 nicely.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. So once you've done that, we're going to sprinkle the rest of the cheese on top of each egg bite. So you're just kind of dividing it over the eggs. And then you simply bake it for about 18 to 22 minutes. So 20 minutes. They're going to poof up kind of nice. And you might be a little shocked if you're peeking in because they'll poof up over your muffin tins. I have a picture on the blog if you want to see that. And then they'll kind of deflate a little bit to a normal size as they settle. And then you simply let them rest in the muffin tin for a minute or two. And if you're eating them warm, you can serve them right away.
Okay.
Otherwise, I recommend moving them over to a wire rack to let them cool off and let air circulate all the way around them. And then you can either put them in an airtight container for the fridge, or if you let them fully cool, I like to wrap them in stacks of 2 in just, like the plastic wrap or saran wrap. And then you can either label them, or I'll put stacks of 2 in a huge gallon baggie so they're all together, not just floating around my freezer.
I understand why you wouldn't want that. I've done that kind of thing many times.
Yeah, and then you find one, 2 years later, you're like, wow, I don't even know when this was from. But yeah, so you can either put them in your fridge for 3 to 5 days. They last nicely for the week, or you can freeze them up to 3 months.
Oh, wow. So to freeze them, you're just sticking them together, wrapping them in plastic and putting them in the bag. Nothing.
Yep, you just want to make sure they're fully cooled before you store them to get more of the moisture out of it. Otherwise, you're going to get freezer burn.
Right. And then when you take them out of the freezer, do you thaw them in the fridge or microwave? How do you go to eat those babies?
Yeah, I usually just grab my stack out of the freezer. They'll kind of be stuck together. So I'll toss them in the microwave for about 30 seconds and then I can separate the two. And then I've found that they reheat the best if you just cut them in half. And then you can either do them in 30-second increments or do about a minute, because I will often rotate them just so they get warmed all the way through evenly. But yeah, you only have to microwave them and you can take them straight out of the freezer.
And I guess if you wanted to do the little Starbucks touch here, you would microwave them for 30 seconds to separate them, and then you could put them in an air fryer if you had one.
100%. Yeah, so you could kind of get that nice crispy outside with an air fryer if that's something you have, or a convection oven toaster oven kind of thing that you have on your counter.
Perfect. Well, Meredith, I love this idea. Like I said, it is truly something I'm getting my kids. Wait, I'm going to just say this. Anybody who's listening knows that I've been saying this for 3 years now, but I am truly getting my kids cooking this summer. And this is the
I believe in you. You can do it.
I don't know. I keep saying it, but no, I have a real strong plan, and people will be hearing about it a little bit actually, because it's going to be involved in the podcast a bit. But I do have this strong plan, and one of the things I want them to start doing, my son is a junior, so he's going to be a senior in high school next year, heading off to whatever he's going to do after that. And so knowing how to prep some things that are hearty and good for the freezer and have them even when he's away from home, that's really what I want him to be able to learn. So this is perfect.
Might be able to intrigue him to do it. Let him customize it. Does he like spicy? Put chorizo in, or, ground sausage or breakfast sausage instead of bacon if that's what he wants to do. Let him pick what he wants to put in it, because then he's going to be more likely to, one, make it, and then two, eat it.
I actually, you know what? It's so smart. You're so smart. I think that both of my kids have been a little bit resistant to learning cooking. I don't want to say that too strongly. Guys, if you're listening, I know it's been different than that, but I am convinced that once they start and they start playing with things, they're both very analytical, sciencey minded in ways. This whole like world is going to open up, like, oh, well, my mom never puts this in here. I'm putting that in there, and like adding and changing and making it their own, right? I really think they're going to enjoy that. So, and this is actually, yes, it's a great recipe for them to learn that prepping and freezing, but also the customizations, because they can go anywhere with this.
Yeah. And you can practice or play with different flavor combinations, and you can go, oh, that one was awesome. Or you can say, works so good, we're just going to eat it and try something different next time.
Yeah. And it's not high stakes, right? Like, I mean, eggs are expensive right now, but like, it's not like a meal that you're cooking for a family of 5 that has to be feeding everybody and everybody be happy that day. It's just this little side nice thing that you're making. Well, Meredith, if you could let everybody know your website again and where they can find you online. I will, of course, link to this recipe in the show notes for the podcast, but they want to go see those puffed up pictures and see how they look and get the full recipe and see what you're up to in your not stereotypic Midwestern kitchen. Where should they go?
Sure. You can find me at ourlovelanguagesfood.com. And I'm also at Our Love Languages Food on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and YouTube.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to hear how these go for your family.
Thank you. So definitely one way to also have your own back is to have those egg bites in your fridge or freezer. What a wonderful idea. Delicious, healthy, hearty, and showing us that Midwestern food is not as stodgy as we thought, right? Thank you so much, Meredith Kruse. Everybody go and check her out. Her website is Our Love Language is Food. And she is on Instagram as well. Our love language is food. Yum. Okay, now what am I doing this week? Well, in terms of fun things, I mentioned that improv class at the top of the show. We are actually having our showcase this week. So my class of newbie intro improv comedy performers are up on stage for our friends and family, showing them what we've learned. I'm super nervous, but so excited. It has been such a blast. And I'll just give a little plug here. If you are in Orlando, we are doing those classes at the SAC Comedy Lab, which has classes and corporate events and great shows all the time. If you've never been before, you should definitely check it out. Don't come to my performance because I'm nervous enough as it is, but go and see a show. You will love it. They're really great. Okay, so that's what I am doing for fun. What am I doing for work this week? So I have told you recently about the pan-seared shrimp that I was working on. Well, one of the tests that I did for that ended up turning into our dinner, which were Tex-Mex shrimp bowls, basically the same like steak burrito bowls and taco bowls that I make all the time that I've told you about so many times because everybody in my house loves them so much and everybody gets what they want and it's just easy to make. And of course, easy on me when everybody is happy and telling me how good their dinner is, right? So I did the same thing we always do, but I did the pan-seared shrimp on there and they were a huge success. And so I've decided to make that into a recipe for the sites. It's already pretty much tested because we do it all the time. And I'm just doing the photographs and the video for that this week. So that is one thing on my list. And then I am doing this lemon chicken skillet. I'm thinking of it as like a reboot. It is a recipe that was on the site a long time ago that I took down just because it wasn't getting any traffic. Nobody was visiting it. Nobody was commenting on it. And sometimes I think that, those recipes need to come down and then get a new life on another day. So I am retesting that one, playing around with it. I really want it to be a really nice creamy sauce in a skillet, made very easy. Chicken, lemon, maybe kind of more of a Greek flavor profile this time. So I'm going to be playing around with that. And if I get that one good, then I will do the pictures and videos for that one as well. as to what is going live on the site this week. Oh, I hadn't even realized it, but it is the pan-seared shrimp recipe that I have told you I was testing before. Those same shrimp are going in the Tex-Mex shrimp bowl that I was just talking about, but the recipe for the shrimp by themselves is going live on Cook the Story this week. And then on the Cookful, that asparagus stuffed chicken breast that I told you about, just so pretty when you slice into it and so tasty. Oh, I just heard from Jennifer. You know, Jen comes and cooks with me. She took the leftovers from one of our testing rounds of that one home, and her husband had it for dinner, and he raved about it and has told her several times how much he loved it. So you know it's going to be good. The asparagus stuffed chicken is going live on the Cookful this week. And thank you, Mike, for the compliments. I am very, very happy you liked it. And then what am I telling you about on this show this week? Well, you probably guessed that it would be pan-seared shrimp and asparagus stuffed chicken. You are correct. Those are going up. Oh, the flank steak. I know that I've told you about this one before, but I just did a video for it and I love it so much, and I want to tell you all about it again. There's a beef tips and rice. Oh, we're doing lots of beef this week. There's some oxtails, and there's a nice skillet dinner that uses beef and potato. So lots of delicious recipes going live this week. Lots to choose from. Lots to make your week easier and more delicious. Make sure you're subscribed to this show so you get all of these ideas, a new one every day. The easiest way to subscribe is just to use your favorite podcast app and search for recipe of the day. I should show up. I'm everywhere. And you can also go to cookthestory.com/ROTD to get the links to everything I've talked about today. You are going to find that by going to the correct date for today's episode, because everything there is arranged by date. So today is May 17th of 2025. And once you go there, you can get all the links to everything that I talked about, how to thaw sausages quickly, how to cook them straight from frozen in the air fryer and on the stove, and any of the recipes that I've told you about that are live already. The links will be there as well. You can also always go to cookthestory.com or thecookful.com and search. The search function on there works really well. So you'll always find something delicious on those sites. I want to say a huge thank you to Meredith Kruse from Our Love Language Is Food.com. Thank you for a great conversation, for getting rid of our old stereotypes, and for a tasty recipe. And thank you everybody for listening. I'm so happy you're out there. And, you know, I hope you've got your own back, that you've done something wonderful for yourself this weekend. Little self-care, go for a walk, take a bath, maybe make some egg bites to have in the fridge for some good breakfast later in the week. Do something nice for yourself. You deserve it. I am Christine Pittman from cookthestory.com, thecookful.com, the all-new chicken cookbook, and from this podcast, Recipe of the Day. I hope you have a great weekend. Let's get cooking.